As John Henderson peeled the third shrimp, I knew dinner was ruined tonight. His movements were practiced, thumb and forefinger pinching the tail, a gentle squeeze, and the entire shrimp meat slid out, plump and steaming. He placed it in the plate of the woman to his right, his actions as tender as if serving a precious queen. Joanna, his assistant and distant cousin, received the shrimp, her eyes crinkling into crescent moons. "Oh, Mr. Henderson, you're too kind. I can do it myself." Her words were polite, but her hand didn't pause, picking up the shrimp and bringing it to her mouth. I sat to John's left, with our 6-year-old daughter, Lily, between us. Lily wore the pink princess dress I had specifically picked out for her today, a perfectly tied bow clip in her hair. Her small hands rested properly on her lap. She had been watching her father peel the shrimp, her eyes filled with that unadulterated childish longing. But she didn't speak, because she knew she was allergic to shrimp and couldn't even touch it. This was the head table at a night's charity gala, seated with prominent figures from the local business community. The lighting was soft, the music light, and amidst the clinking of glasses, everything was decorum and restraint. John finished peeling the fourth shrimp, pushing the shells and heads to his left, right in front of Lily. The pile of shells, glistening with sauce and residue, lay on her white porcelain plate, a jarring contrast of red and white against her pink dress and bow. "Lily," John said, without turning his head, his tone as casual as remarking on the weather. "Shrimp shells have the most calcium. Don't waste them. Usually, you can't get them this fresh. You're lucky because of Miss Joanna." My hand paused midair. Everyone at the table froze for a second. Old Mr. Davies, the vice president of the Chamber of Commerce across from us, held his chopsticks suspended, his expression momentarily frozen. His wife beside him's mouth slightly opened and closed, the indecision of, should it pretend not to have heard? Written all over her face. Joanna, however, showed no embarrassment, even smiling at Lily. "Lily, you're such a good girl. Auntie's giving you half her shrimp. Giving my daughter shrimp shells. And she called that half." Lily lowered her head, looking at the pile of debris in front of her. Her small hands clutched her dress. She didn't cry or make a fuss. She just looked up at me, her lips moving, her voice barely a whisper. "Mommy, am I not good?" My nails dug into my palms. It hurt, but not as much as the ache in my heart. This pain wasn't sudden, it was cumulative, like a needle pricking you every day. You think you can endure it, but after 3 years, you realize your whole hand is ruined. I looked at John's profile. He was already discussing next week's schedule with Joanna, not even glancing at Lily. 3 years ago, this man used to peel shrimp for me too. Back then, he was just starting out, his company an empty shell. He relied entirely on the resources and connections my father left me, slowly building it up. At that time, he said, "Honey, you've worked so hard. From now on, you just rest at home. I'll handle everything outside." I believed him. I transferred all effective operational control of the company to him, retreating behind the scenes to be Mrs. Henderson for 3 years. To fit his image of a virtuous wife and mother, I declined all industry forum invitations, replaced all my business attire with linen maxi dresses, and only posted about my child and kitchen on social media. I thought I was building a home. It turned out I was building nothing. "Mommy," Lily called again. I snapped back to reality, lowering my head and smiling at her. I pushed the plate of shrimp shells aside and used a tissue to wipe the table in front of her. "It's not that you're not good, honey. Daddy made a mistake." Then, I picked up the red wine glass in front of me. The wine was cold, beads of condensation clinging to the glass. I stood up, my movements not fast, even graceful. John finally turned around, frowning as he looked at the wine glass in my hand. "What are you doing?" I didn't answer him. I walked to his side, and under everyone's gaze, poured the entire glass of chilled red wine over his head. The wine flowed down his forehead, nose and chin, soaking his custom-tailored suit, staining his white shirt with large, dark red marks, like blood. The entire room fell silent, even the background music seemed to have pressed pause. John froze for 3 full seconds. Then his face flushed to beet red. "Megan White, are you crazy?" He jumped up, pushing his chair back with a near-splitting scrape. He raised his hand. When that slap landed on my left cheek, my head buzzed. It felt like 10,000 bees were buzzing in my ears. I turned my head, tasting the metallic tang of blood in my mouth, but I didn't fall. I stood steady. "John Henderson." I turned back to face him, my voice so calm, it felt alien, even to myself. "Your daughter is allergic to shrimp. I've told you this at least 20 times. His hand was still raised in the air, his expression momentarily sheepish, so fleeting that I would have missed it if I hadn't been staring at him. But that fleeting guilt was quickly overtaken by rage. "A shrimp shell? Are you really making such a fuss over a shrimp shell? Everyone's watching. Where do I put my face?" His face. He always cared about this face, not his daughter's life. "As for it," I said, then bent down, picked up the plate of shrimp shells from in front of Lily, and dumped the entire contents onto his expensive suit. The shrimp shells and sauce slid down his chest, some pieces catching in his pockets. I released my grip, and the plate crashed to the floor, shattering into several pieces. "Since you think this stuff is so nutritious," I pulled Lily's hand, looking down at her frightened little face, my heart clenching. "You can enjoy it yourself." I picked up Lily and turned to leave. Behind me, John's roar, barely suppressed, echoed. "Megan White. Stop right there. Don't you dare!" I didn't look back. My heels clicked steadily on the marble floor. Lily clung to me neck, her small body trembling. She buried her face in my shoulder, her voice muffled. "Mommy, I'm scared." "Don't be scared," I kissed her hair. "Mommy sheer." As I reached the ballroom exit, I paused. Not out of hesitation, but because I suddenly remembered something. When I arrived earlier, I saw a flower basket at the check-in desk that read, "John Henderson and Mrs. Megan White, with best wishes, Mrs. Indeed." Pushing open the door, the night air was cool, slowly easing the heat from the slap on my face. The rideshare driver was waiting in the parking lot. I put Lily in her car seat and buckled her up. Her eyes were red, but she hadn't cried. She had always been like this since she was little, holding in her tears when she was upset. Just like my mother. Before I closed the car door, she suddenly tugged at my sleeve. "Mommy, from now on, can we not have dinner with Daddy anymore?" I squatted down, looking her in the eye. Those eyes no longer held the innocence of a 6-year-old, only a prematurely mature caution. My nose stung, but I didn't let her see. "Okay," I said. As the car drove out of the hotel, my phone rang. John Henderson calling. I pressed decline. It rang again. Decline. The third time, I just turned off my phone. Outside the car window, the city lights receded, piece by piece, like a glowing river. Lily was already asleep in the back seat, her breathing shallow and light. I stared at the road ahead, my mind a jumble and yet perfectly clear. It was a strange feeling, like a tangled mess of 3 years suddenly being cut with a knife. The moment it was cut, it wasn't relief, it was a huge sense of emptiness. It turned out I had been deceiving myself for 3 years. Deceiving myself that he was just busy, not uncaring. Deceiving myself that Joanna was just for work, and there was nothing real between them. Deceiving myself that he was just bad at expressing himself with Lily, not that he disliked her because she was a girl. This plate of shrimp shells today shattered all those deceptions. It was almost 11 p.m. when we got home. I carried Lily to bed, changed her into her pajamas, and tucked her in. Half asleep, she clutched my finger, mumbling something I couldn't quite catch. I sat by her bed for a while, waiting until she was completely asleep before getting up. Walking out of her room, I leaned against the hallway wall and exhaled deeply. Then I opened my phone. 23 missed calls, all from John Henderson. And 7 text messages. I didn't open them. Just from the first few words of the notifications, I knew the gist. Are you crazy? Come back. Don't make a fuss. I swiped away all notifications and opened another app, one I hadn't logged into for 3 years, my former personal workstation. The interface was still the same, a dark gray background with a small line of text in the upper left corner. Charge architecture. Highest authority. GMPT. Megan White. I had built this system myself. John's company's entire financial structure, risk control model, and supply chain management were all designed by me before our marriage. After I stepped down, I just stopped overseeing daily operations, but the underlying permissions were never handed over. Not because I didn't trust him, but because I had a habit of always leaving myself a backup plan in anything I did. People in investment banking don't put all their eggs in one basket. This wasn't premeditation, it was instinct. I flipped through a few pages of recent financial statements, my brow furrowing more and more. 3 years ago, when I handed it over, the company's annual revenue was $80 million, with a net profit margin of 12%. Now, annual revenue had increased to $150 million, but the net profit margin had dropped to 4%. Where did the money go? I opened the itemized list and scrolled down, line by line. On the third page, I saw a special administrative assistant allowance of $15,000 per month, paid for 2 consecutive years. Recipient: Joanna. I kept scrolling. President's special entertainment expenses, $800,000 a year, unaccounted for. Brand strategy consultant fee, the contracting party was Ashell Company registered only 6 months ago. Legal representative: Joanna's sister. I went through page after page, my finger moving faster and faster across the screen. Not anger, but a cold, professional clarity. John had not only betrayed me emotionally, he was systematically hollowing out this company. And 30% of this company's shares belonged to me. I closed the app, opened my contacts, and found a name I hadn't contacted in 3 years. Sam Young. Sam was my right-hand man when I was in investment banking. Now he was a partner at the city's largest law firm. I drafted a message. Sam, are you free tomorrow morning? I have a case I'd like you to look at. 3 seconds later, a reply came. Miss White, you're still alive? I thought you retired. I smiled, typed a few words. Not retired, just slept for 3 years. Now I'm awake. Tomorrow at 9 a.m., my office. Come whenever you want. I put down my phone and went to the bathroom to take a shower. As the hot water streamed over me, I looked at myself in the mirror. 32 years old, skin still good, body a bit thinner from 3 years of taking care of Lily, but the foundation was still there. A faint red mark still lingered on my left cheek, a souvenir from John's slap. I reached up and touched the mark. It didn't hurt anymore, or rather, it wasn't the kind of pain that made you want to cry. It was a reminder of the cost of waking up. I turned off the light and lay in bed, staring at the ceiling for a long time. At 2:14 a.m., my phone lit up again. Not John Henderson, but a text message from an unknown number. I hesitated for a moment, then opened it. There was only one line. Miss White, are you okay? If you need any help, please contact me anytime. Leo Chen. Leo Chen. The name wasn't unfamiliar. He was the new star in the local venture capital scene. In the past 2 years, his venture capital fund had been rapidly expanding, rumored to manage hundreds of millions of dollars. I had seen his exclusive interview in an industry magazine. The photo showed a very young man, around 27 or 28, with deep-set features and shrewd eyes. But I didn't recall having any interaction with him. How did he have my number? And how did he know what happened tonight? I stared at the text message for 2 minutes, but didn't reply. Then I turned off my phone and closed my eyes. Whoever he was, there was only one most important thing now: to completely remove John Henderson from my and Lily's lives. The next morning at 6 a.m., I was shaken awake by Lily. Mommy, Mommy. Her voice was tearful. I shot up, instantly alert. "What's wrong, honey?" She showed me her left arm. A patch of red rash, dense and alarming, had broken out. My head buzzed. She hadn't eaten the shrimp shells last night, but the juice from their situ must have splashed on her dress, and she wiped it with her hand. "Contact allergy." I scooped her up and rushed out, grabbing my bag, car keys, and wrapping her in a jacket. All in one smooth motion. We arrived at the children's hospital at 7:03 a.m. The emergency room doctor took one look and said it was an allergic reaction, needing observation for possible asthma. "Any history of allergic asthma?" the doctor asked. "Yes." My voice trembled, but I forced myself to recount Lily's allergy history. "We'll start an IV and observe her," the doctor wrote out the orders. "Don't be too anxious, parents. Right now, it's just a skin reaction, no respiratory symptoms, but to be safe, we'll keep her for half a day for observation." I sat in the observation room, holding Lily. The IV needle was in her small hand, and she was so quiet it broke my heart. "Mommy, it hurts," she whispered. "I know, it will be better soon." I kissed her forehead, keeping my voice as steady as possible, but my hands were trembling. I hid my other hand behind my back, clenching my knuckles until they were white. "John Henderson, you owe your daughter." I'm keeping track of every single thing. By 9:30 a.m., Lily's condition stabilized. Most of the rash had receded. The doctor said she could be discharged in the afternoon. I asked my nanny to commute to the hospital to stay with her, and I drove straight to Sam Young's law office. Sam looked noticeably startled when he saw me. "Miss White." His gaze fell on the still faint red mark on my left cheek. "Long story short," I said, placing a USB drive on his desk. "This contains John Henderson's financial data for the past 3 years. I want a divorce. I want full custody of my daughter. I want my 30% shares back, and the $4 million he embezzled, to be returned to me." I sat across from him, pulling the chair closer. "Also, help me investigate Riverbend Brand Strategy. The registered owner of that company is Joanna's sister. I suspect this is a complete chain of illicit profit transfer." Sam looked at me and slowly smiled. It wasn't a pitying smile of "you poor thing," but a relieved smile of "the boss is finally back, Miss White," he said, opening the USB drive. "To be honest, I've been waiting for this day for 3 years." I leaned back in the chair and let out a long breath. "Don't call me Miss White," I said. "Just call me Megan. I'm just an ordinary woman with a cold getting a divorce now." "Oh, come on," Sam said, still flipping through the documents without looking up. "An ordinary woman wouldn't still retain the highest system privileges after 3 years of being out of the game. You're a superhero in pajamas." I didn't respond. I didn't feel like a hero. I was just a foolish woman who, until today, had finally understood one thing. Back then, what I gave up wasn't just the operational control of a company. I gave up the steering wheel of my entire life. And now, I was going to take it back. When I left Sam Young's office, my phone had over 40 messages from John Henderson. I stood on the steps outside the law firm. The sunlight was blinding, and the autumn wind ruffled my hair. I scrolled through them one by one. "What exactly do you want?" I scrolled through them one by one. "I can overlook what happened last night. Come back quickly. There's a dinner party tonight I need you to attend." "Megan White, are you deaf? You're not coming back, are you? Then I'm not paying Lily's tuition this month." The last message was sent at 7 a.m. this morning. "Come back when you've thought it through." I'm not unreasonable. Not unreasonable. I stared at those words for 10 seconds, then exited the conversation, not even replying with a punctuation mark. On the way to pick up Lily from the hospital, I received a call. Caller ID. Joanna. I raised an eyebrow and answered. "Megan, dear." Joanna's voice was as sweet as honey, that deliberately intimate tone sending shivers down my spine. "Mr. Henderson was so upset last night, he didn't sleep. My heart aches just looking at him. Maybe I can mediate?" After all, we're all family. Family? I didn't even tighten my grip on the steering wheel, my voice languid. Joanna, does John Henderson know about your $15,000 monthly special allowance? There was a second of silence on the other end of the line. Then, her normal speaking speed returned. Megan, what are you talking about? That's my performance bonus. Mr. Henderson personally approved it, I interrupted her. And the Riverbend Brand Strategy Company, was that also personally approved by Mr. Henderson? What kind of consulting did your sister do to earn $800,000 a year from it? This silence lasted much longer. I could hear her breathing change rhythm on the other end, from smooth to sharp gasps. Megan. The sweetness had vanished from her voice, replaced by something I was more familiar with. Naked vigilance. What are you trying to do with these accusations? Nothing, I said, driving with one hand, turning into the hospital parking lot. Just a reminder. Next time you want to mediate for someone, clean up your own mess first. I hung up, not waiting for her reply. Because there was no need. With people like Joanna, reasoning with them was a waste of time. You just needed to let her know you had a knife in your hand, and she would temporarily retreat. As for what she would do after retreating, that was up to her. Lily was discharged in the afternoon. The rash had mostly disappeared. The doctor gave us a long list of precautions. On the way home, we passed a dessert shop. She pressed her face against the car window for a long time, not speaking. I pulled over. What do you want to eat? She turned to look at me, her big eyes lighting up, then quickly retracting. Mommy, Daddy said eating sweets makes you fat and ugly. My heart clenched. A 6-year-old girl, even wanting a piece of cake, had to consider her father's reaction. I unbuckled my seatbelt, opened the car door. Come on, Mommy's treating you to the biggest strawberry cake today. Lily's eyes truly sparkled. Her smile made me feel that even if there were mountains of daggers and seas of fire ahead, I had to cross them. It was evening when we got home. I had just coaxed Lily into the bath when the doorbell rang. Opening the door, it was John Henderson. He had changed into clean casual clothes, his hair neatly combed, carrying a bag of fruit. If it weren't for the lingering slap mark on my face, this scene would have looked like a perfect husband coming home from work. Can I come in for a moment? Let's talk. His tone was unusually soft. I didn't move aside. Say it at the door. He took a deep breath, as if suppressing some temper. What happened yesterday was thoughtless of me. About the shrimp shells, I really didn't expect Lily to be allergic. You didn't expect? I had told him at least 20 times. Anything else? I asked. He pursed his lips, offering the fruit bag. All right, calm down. Tomorrow there's an important fundraising meeting at the company. I need you to. I didn't take the fruit bag. Are you here to apologize, or to ask for my help? His expression froze for a moment. Then, the John Henderson I knew too well returned. A furrowed brow, a twisted lip, that impatient condescension of how can you be so unreasonable, emanating from his core. Megan White, can you stop being so dramatic? Is a shrimp shell really worth making such a big deal about? So many people were watching my face last night. Your daughter went to the emergency room this morning. I interrupted him. He paused. An allergic reaction. 3 hours on an IV. His mouth opened as if to say something, but he didn't. I looked at him, waiting for 3 seconds. But he didn't. What he said was, well, is she okay now? Good. Tomorrow's fundraising meeting, I closed the door with a sharp, decisive bang. Then I heard him pound on the door outside. Megan White. You. I turned and walked inside, checking if Lily had finished her bath. The sound outside lasted a while, then stopped. He had left. When Lily emerged from the bathroom in her small bathrobe, I was sitting on the sofa, lost in thought. She ran over and climbed onto my lap, her damp hair brushing my arm. "Mommy, was Daddy here just now? Did he come to see me?" I looked down at her eyes. There was expectation in those eyes, even if she herself might not want to admit it. I didn't want to lie to her, but I also didn't want her to be completely disappointed in her father at 6 years old. "He came to see you," I said. "But you were already in the bath, so he'll come another day." Lily said, "Oh," and buried her face in my arms, not speaking again. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not because of John, but because one thought kept swirling in my mind: tomorrow's fundraising meeting. He came to me not because he regretted the shrimp shell incident, but because there was a fundraising meeting tomorrow, and he needed me to show up. Why did he need me to show up? Because the investors wanted to meet, not just Mr. Henderson, but the company's technical architecture partner, which was me. For the past 3 years, John had no problem with external social engagements representing the company. But whenever it involved core technical due diligence and in-depth negotiations, the other party would always ask, "Where is Megan White?" He would always say, "My wife isn't feeling well and is resting at home." Or, "I'm fully authorized to handle this part." Most of the time, he could bluff his way through. But this time, it seemed he couldn't. I opened my laptop and searched for investment firms that had recently been in contact with their company. When I found it, I was stunned. The leading investor was Kunyu Capital. The founder of Kunyu Capital was Leo Chen, the same Leo Chen who sent me the text message last night. Coincidence? I didn't really believe in coincidences. But now wasn't the time to delve into that. I had more urgent matters to deal with. The next morning at 9 a.m., I did not go to John Henderson's company. I went to the company's registry. As a co-founder and a 30% shareholder, I formally submitted an application for shareholder inspection rights, requesting to retrieve the company's complete financial records, board resolutions, and all external investment approval documents for the past 3 years. This was a right granted to me by law, requiring no one's consent. After completing this, I drove to the company. I hadn't been here in 3 years. The company had moved to a new location, occupying 2 entire floors in the most expensive office building in the CBD. The lobby was all marble and glass walls. The receptionists, dressed in uniform black suits, looked very impressive. I walked in wearing a black slim-fit suit dress. The receptionist looked up at me and offered a professional smile. "Hello. Who are you here to see?" She didn't recognize me. Of course. Most of the old employees from 3 years ago had probably left. "I'm looking for John Henderson," I said. "Do you have an appointment?" "Mr. Henderson's schedule is quite full today." "No appointment needed," I said, pulling out a business card from my bag and placing it on the reception desk. "I'm Megan White. I'm a co-founder of this company." The young woman looked down at the business card, her face changing color. She clearly knew the name, but had never seen the person alive. "Miss White, please wait a moment. I'll inform him immediately." "No need to inform," I said, walking around the reception desk directly towards the elevator. Behind me, the young woman's panicked voice came. Miss White, please wait. Mr. Henderson is in a meeting." I didn't stop. The elevator arrived at the 17th floor. As the doors opened, a wide corridor stretched out, ending at the CEO's office. A few employees carrying documents walked by in the corridor, all of them stopping when they saw me. Some recognized me, their expressions turning subtle, as if they had seen a legendary figure suddenly appear in reality. I walked to the CEO's office door. Joanna was sitting at the secretary's desk outside. The moment she saw me, the coffee cup in her hand trembled slightly, but she recovered quickly, standing up with a sweet smile. "Oh, Megan. What brings you here?" "Mr. Henderson is in a meeting with investors inside." "Move." I didn't look at her. My gaze went past her, directly to the closed oak door. Joanna's smile froze for a moment. She instinctively blocked the doorway, her body slightly angled. "Megan, dear, you see, Inside right now. I looked down at her. In my heels, I was half a head taller than her. I wasn't angry, nor did I raise my voice. I just looked at her with the same gaze I used 3 years ago at investment banking negotiation tables, a gaze that had crushed countless opponents. Joanna. My voice was very soft. Are you blocking me? Her Adam's apple bobbed. In that second, her mind must have been racing, weighing the consequences of confronting me. Then she moved aside. I pushed open the door. 7 or 8 people were sitting in the conference room. Ask 10. 8. Mar.com. John Henderson was at the head of the table, impeccably dressed in a suit, speaking eloquently to the projection screen. At the other end of the long table sat 3 people I didn't recognize, presumably the investor representatives. The moment I pushed the door open, everyone's gaze shifted to me. John Henderson's voice came to an abrupt halt. He looked at me, his expression completing a triple transformation in 0.5 seconds, from surprise to annoyance, then to forced suppression. Megan, he chuckled dryly. What are you doing here? I know what meeting you're having, I said, walking to the side of the long table, putting down my bag, and naturally pulling out a chair to sit. Then, I looked at the 3 investor representatives across from me, extending my hand with a smile. Hello, I'm Megan White. I'm a co-founder and chief technology architect of this company. The middle-aged man, sitting opposite me, visibly relaxed, as if he had been waiting a long time and had finally met the right person. He stood up and shook me hand. Miss White, hello. I've heard so much about you. I'm Frank Smith, investment director at Kunyu Capital. Kunyu Capital. Sure enough, it was Leo Chen's people. Mr. Smith, you're too kind, I said, sitting down, my gaze naturally sweeping over the documents on the table. Where were we? I'll take it from here. John Henderson's face was already extremely grim, but he didn't react. He couldn't. In this kind of setting, arguing with your wife in front of investors was more embarrassing than anything. For the next hour, just like 3 years ago, I meticulously explained the company's underlying architecture, data security model, and the core barriers of the supply chain algorithm, piece by piece. The more Frank Smith listened, the brighter his eyes became, nodding frequently and asking increasingly in-depth questions. John Henderson, sitting next to me, barely got a word in. Every time he tried to say something, Frank Smith would politely but firmly redirect the question back to me. Perhaps Miss White could elaborate on this part. At the end of the meeting, Frank Smith and I exchanged business cards privately. Miss White, I learned a lot today. We'll organize our thoughts, and for subsequent due diligence, we'll need to follow up with you in detail. Any time, I said. After Frank Smith left, only John Henderson and I remained in the conference room. He sat in his chair, unmoving, his face as dark as a pot. What was the meaning of your visit today? His voice was squeezed out, through gritted teeth. I tidied my bag, not looking up. What meaning? This is my company. Can't I come and see it? Your company? He sneered. Who has been managing operations for the past 3 years? Who increased revenue from $80 million to $150 million? Do you think just having your name on it? $15 million in revenue, 4% net profit margin. I interrupted him, looking up at him. John Henderson, are you running a business or playing house? His mouth opened and closed. I didn't give him a chance to retort, continuing, Joanna's $15,000 monthly allowance and the $800,000 yearly in transfers through that shell company, Riverbend. Did you think I didn't know? His pupils contracted. You investigated me? I investigated my own company, I said, picking up my bag and standing. John Henderson, I advise you, before I officially initiate legal proceedings, fill those empty holes yourself. Otherwise, I paused at the door, when the legal team gets involved, it won't be as simple as filling holes. I walked out of the conference room without looking back at his expression, but I could feel his gaze fixed on my back. That gaze was no longer the dismissive and nonchalant one of the past 3 years, it was fear. I was alone in the elevator, looking at my blurred reflection on the metal doors. A black suit dress, a neat ponytail, a straight back. This was Megan White, 3 years ago. Not the gentle and compliant Mrs. Henderson, this washer. Stepping out of the office building, I almost bumped into someone. The other person moved quickly, but half a cup of coffee still spilled on my sleeve. "Apologies," a deep male voice said, with obvious panic. I looked up. Standing in front of me was a very tall man, about 6'3", wearing a dark gray cashmere coat. His features were deep-set, his jawline sharp, but incongruous with his cold, hard appearance was his extremely flustered expression, like a schoolboy who had broken his neighbor's vase. "I'm sorry, I'll go buy you tissues." "No, I'll wash it for you." "No, I mean..." He stammered, his ears visibly reddening. A venture capital giant managing hundreds of millions, flustered because he spilled coffee on my sleeve. The contrast was so great it made me want to laugh. "It's fine," I said, taking a tissue from my bag and wiping it. "It's not expensive clothing." He stood still, his lips pursed, as if summoning courage. "Miss White," he called, his voice softer than before. "I'm Leo Chen." My movements paused. I looked up at him again. Not much different from the magazine photos, only in person he was much taller and much younger. Up close, his eyes were light in color, like a deep winter lake, but at that moment, the nervousness and caution in those eyes were completely at odds with the title venture capital giant. "You're the Leo Chen who sent me the text message?" "Yes." His ears reddened even more. "How did you get my number?" He swallowed, as if trying to organize his thoughts. "I've always known." The answer was incredibly strange. But even stranger was the way he looked at me. It wasn't like a first meeting, nor was it the polite formality of a business setting. It was a gaze that, how to put it, was like he had been watching for a very long time, and finally, the opportunity to approach had arrived, but he was afraid of startling me, so he didn't dare get too close. I didn't press him. Not because I wasn't curious, but because my mind was currently filled with too many things, and there was no spare capacity to deal with this ambiguous flirtation. "Mr. Chen," I took a half step back, creating a little distance. "If it's about the fundraising, you can liaise with Frank Smith." "It's not about fundraising," he interrupted me. Then, as if startled by his own eagerness, he took another step back, putting his hands in his coat pockets. His fingers seemed to be clutching something inside. "Then what is it about?" He lowered his head, his eyelashes casting a small shadow on his face. After a few seconds of silence, he pulled something out of his pocket and handed it to me. A bracelet. Very old. The woven red string had faded, and a small silver bell was attached to it. The bell was slightly deformed, as if it had been clutched for too many years. I looked at the bracelet. Something in my mind was stirred, a very distant stirring, as if in the deepest recesses of my memory, a door had been gently pushed open a crack. This was 15 years ago. His voice was very soft, as if afraid of disturbing something. "You made it for me." I suddenly looked up. He was looking at me, his light-colored eyes holding a strange glow. Not an aggressive intensity, but a very gentle warmth, cautiously emerging after being suppressed for many years. "Megan," he said, "I was little fish." The words little fish were like a key, clicking open something. 15 years ago, I was 17, living in my grandfather's old house. A new family moved in next door, with a quiet little boy. He always squatted in the corner, bruised all over, like a discarded stray animal. I secretly brought him food and made him a bracelet. Because he was always alone, I called him Little Fish, a lonely little fish. Later, one time, a group of older kids surrounded him and beat him. I rushed over and protected him. That day, my arm was badly scratched, bleeding a lot. He looked at my wound and cried loudly. That was the first time I heard him make a sound. Later, my grandfather passed away, and I moved back to the city, never seeing that little boy again. You. My voice was a little choked. You're that. He nodded. A very small but firm nod. I looked at this tall man, 6'3", trying to superimpose him with the image of that thin, quiet little boy from my memory. They didn't quite overlap, and yet, vaguely, they did. His eyes, those light-colored eyes. Little fish also had eyes that color. 15 years, I said, my voice a little hoarse. 15 years. He put the bracelet back into his pocket, his movements extremely careful, as if he were collecting some rare treasure. I've been looking for you for a long time. I didn't know what to say. My mind was a mess, but there was a very strange feeling. Before today, I felt like I was fighting alone. From last night until now, everything had been faced by myself. But at this moment, standing in the autumn wind outside this office building, looking at this flustered tall man, I suddenly felt, it didn't seem so lonely anymore. But I couldn't be soft-hearted at a time like this. I still had too many things to deal with. Leo Chen, I took a deep breath, thank you for telling me all this, but right now, I know, he said. You're going through a divorce. You're fighting John Henderson for equity. Your daughter went to the emergency room yesterday because of an allergy. I looked at him, my eyes slightly narrowed. You know a lot. His ears reddened again, but his voice was earnest. Megan, I'm not spying on you. It's just that for the past 3 years, I've been following you. Not a son investor, but as he paused, not finishing the word, but I understood. I nodded, neither refusing nor accepting, just saying, I have to go. Lily is waiting for me at home. He stepped back, making way for me. If you need anything, anytime, just call me. My phone is on 24 hours. I walked a few steps, then stopped and looked back at him. He was still standing there, hands in his pockets. The wind ruffled the hem of his coat. Leo Chen, I said. You're still not very good at talking. He was startled. Then I saw him smile, a very faint smile, but his whole demeanor softened. Not in front of you, he said. I turned and walked quickly to the parking lot. My heart was beating a little faster than usual. Back home, I stayed in my study all night. Sam Young had sent the preliminary investigation results in the afternoon. Joanna's chain of illicit profit transfers was even larger than I had imagined. Not only Riverbend, that shell company, but at least 3 other affiliated companies were also siphoning funds from the company under various pretexts. In 3 years, the total amount transferred exceeded $4 million. $4 million. This wasn't petty embezzlement, it was systematic looting. And John Henderson couldn't possibly not know. He was the CEO. All expenses over $100,000 required his signature. He not only knew, he was an accomplice. Except he didn't think it was a crime. In his logic, the company was his, and he could spend it however he wanted. But the company wasn't just his. 30% was mine. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the dense numbers on the screen. I suddenly remembered Frank Smith's gaze in the conference room today, that relieved look of finally finding the right person. Why did he have that expression? Unless within Kunyu Capital, Leo Chen had already told his team that the truly valuable part of this company wasn't John Henderson, but me. So, this round of funding, rather than being an investment in John Henderson's company, was more an investment in me. This thought made me a little uncomfortable. Not because of being valued itself, but because I couldn't distinguish how much of Leo Chen's goodwill was due to little fish, and how much was due to capital calculations. But regardless, he was a card I could play now, as long as I used it properly. I gathered my emotions and sent a message to Sam Young. Divorce petition to be filed tomorrow. Daughter's custody, equity division, and the $4 million embezzlement. Push all 3 lines simultaneously. Sam instantly replied, received, boss, let's go. It was 1 a.m. when I put down my phone. I went to check on Lily. She was sleeping soundly, a trace of the strawberry cake she ate that afternoon still clinging to the corner of her mouth. I sat by her bed for a while, gently wiping her mouth with my thumb. No matter how long this battle lasted, my only bottom line was this: she couldn't be harmed again. Whoever touched her, I would fight them to the death. The next morning, after dropping Lily off at kindergarten, I received a call from John Henderson. This time, his tone had changed. It wasn't yesterday's anger, but something I rarely heard from him. Compromise. Megan, let's talk. Let's be direct. What happened yesterday was my fault. I thought about it all night. He paused. I can handle Joanna. I can also explain those accounting issues you mentioned. We don't need to take this to court. I waited at a red light in front of the steering wheel, watching the traffic ahead. John Henderson, do you know what I found out yesterday? What? $4 million. 3 years of systematic transfers. Silence on the other end of the line. If I submit these to an auditing firm, I continued, my voice as flat as if reading a weather report. You're facing not just divorce and property division issues, but criminal charges. The silence lengthened. I could hear his breathing become heavier, a muffled sound of fear, not anger. What exactly do you want? He finally spoke. Divorce. Daughter comes with me. My 30% shares returned to me, not a cent less. Additionally, the $4 million you embezzled, return my share of $1.2 million. This isn't a negotiation, I interrupted him. This is the last shred of decency I'm giving you. The red light turned green. I stepped on the accelerator. You have 3 days to consider. After 3 days, if you don't sign, the legal team will be out of my control. I hung up. In the rearview mirror, the city streets receded behind me, wave after wave. The 3 years as Mrs. Henderson were over. From today on, I was Megan White. Just Megan White. John Henderson didn't take 3 days, he responded in a day and a half, but it wasn't by signing. It was by counterattacking. That afternoon, I was picking Lily up from kindergarten when a push notification suddenly popped up on my phone. It was an article from a well-known local gossip account. The title was in bold red letters. Shocking. Female founder of public company cheats on husband with venture capital mogul, husband heartbroken. I stood at the kindergarten entrance, my thumb hovering over the screen. I didn't click on it, because I didn't need to. I knew what it said. Lily ran out, her backpack bouncing on her back. Mommy, the teacher praised my drawing today. I stuffed my phone into my pocket, squatted down, and caught her. Really? Show Mommy when we get home. In the car, I let Lily watch cartoons in the back seat and opened the article myself. The content was as I expected. It didn't explicitly name names, but the description was precise enough. A female founder with an M initial and a new venture capital star with an L initial. It included a few blurry photos. One was a side profile of me talking to Leo Chen outside the office building at noon today. Another was a screenshot of a chat provided by an anonymous friend of John Henderson. In the screenshot, John said, "My wife's been in a strange state lately, often coming home very late." The comment section had already exploded. See? Women get rich and change their minds. Poor husband, being cheated on and still so decent. Maybe that woman was never any good to begin with. I closed the comment section, my fingers not trembling at all. Because I already knew John Henderson would play this card. A man accustomed to controlling everything, when he finds himself on the verge of losing control, his instinctive reaction isn't to admit wrongdoing, but to discredit the other party. As long as he ruined my reputation, whether it was a divorce lawsuit or an equity dispute, he could claim the moral high ground in public opinion. Beth forgot one thing. I had never cared about my reputation. I only cared about 2 things: my daughter and my money. After getting home, I first cooked dinner for Lily, then spent half an hour drawing with her, and then coaxed her to bed. After she was asleep, I returned to my study and opened my laptop. I logged into the back end of that system I hadn't used in 3 years and pulled up the network logs for John Henderson's office. I had personally built this system, including all internal network monitoring permissions for the company. John thought that by kicking me out of management, he had deleted me from the system. But what he didn't know was that the root directory permissions of this system only recognized one person's fingerprint, mine. It took about 40 minutes, but I found what I wanted: 3 video clips from the internal camera in John Henderson's office. He himself had forgotten about that camera. It was installed during system debugging 3 years ago and had never been removed. The first clip: John Henderson and Joanna in the office. He was peeling shrimp for her. Not like a casual working lunch, but with the two of them sitting face. She was laughing, her body shaking. He was peeling shrimp one by one, putting them into her mouth. The second clip: the two of them on the sofa. No more explicit scenes, but her head was resting on his shoulder, his hand on her waist. The intimacy of their posture far exceeded that of a superior and subordinate. The third clip: Joanna was sitting at John Henderson's desk, working. He stood beside her, massaging her shoulders. He pointed at the computer screen and said something. She leaned in to look, then he kissed the top of her head. The timestamps showed these 3 videos were from November last year, March this year, and August this year, spanning almost a year. Ironclad evidence. I exported the 3 videos, encrypted them, and saved them in 3 different locations. Then I sent a message to Sam Young. That defamatory article will be formally sued tomorrow. Also, submit these 3 videos as counterclaim evidence, Sam replied. Received, boss. Also, good news, the shareholder inspection rights application from the company's registry has been approved. You can retrieve the complete documents tomorrow. I closed my laptop and leaned back in my chair. Moonlight streamed in through the window, casting a square white light patch on my desk. John Henderson. John Henderson. You thought you could muddy the waters and fish in troubled waters. But you forgot. I'm the one who built this entire water system. I know where every pipe leads 1,000 times better than you do. The next morning, Sam Young's lawyer's letter and defamation lawsuit were simultaneously sent to the Gossip Accounts editorial department and to John Henderson. At the same time, I had Sam Young include a paragraph in the lawsuit. It wasn't a legal clause, but something I wrote myself. The plaintiff reserves the right to publicly disclose all evidence to the media. If the defendant continues to maliciously defame the plaintiff through the media, the plaintiff will no longer exercise restraint. This wasn't a bluff. Once those 3 videos in my hand were released, John Henderson's reputation would crumble 10 times faster than mine. He's the heartbroken good husband. Let the public see how this good husband treats his assistant in the office. 2 hours after the lawyer's letter was sent, the article was deleted. At the same time, John Henderson called me.